wonderful talent. She's won a record 26 Grammy Awards. 26 Grammy Awards.
Alison Krauss is one of the most celebrated voices in American music history, a child prodigy who went on to become the most awarded female artist in Grammy history. With her angelic voice and her unmatched skill on the fiddle, she not only redefined bluegrass, but also bridged the gap between country, folk, and mainstream audiences. To her millions of fans around the world, Alison seemed unstoppable. Every performance shimmered with grace, and every collaboration, from Robert Plant to Willie Nelson, seemed to cement her place as a timeless icon. But then something strange happened. At the height of her career, when she should have been riding a wave of success, Alison Krauss suddenly stepped back. Concert tours slowed, new albums became rare, and whispers began to circulate in the industry. Fans asked the same burning question: why did she disappear? For years, the public only saw the polished surface, the radiant smile, the flawless voice, the awards lining her shelves. Behind closed doors, however, Alison was grappling with struggles that very few knew about. There was a deeply personal reason why she chose to walk away from the spotlight, one that even shocked those closest to her. In this video, we dive deep into the untold story behind Alison Krauss's decision to quit. We'll explore the pressures she faced, the hidden battles that silenced her music, and the moment she finally revealed the truth. The reason isn't what most people think. And once you hear it, you may never see Alison Krauss the same way. Alison Krauss was never meant to be ordinary. Born in Decatur, Illinois, she was barely out of kindergarten when her parents noticed she had a gift most children could only dream of. By the age of 5, she was already playing the violin, and within a few short years, her extraordinary talent began to outshine everyone around her. At just 13, she recorded her first album, and by 21, she was standing on the stage of the Grammy Awards, clutching her first golden trophy. This was no accident. It was the beginning of one of the most decorated careers in music history. But Alison wasn't just a skilled fiddle player or a sweet-voiced singer. She became something bigger, a bridge between worlds. Bluegrass, once considered niche and fading, found a new heartbeat through her music. With her band, Union Station, she brought haunting harmonies and masterful instrumentation to millions who had never listened to bluegrass before. Suddenly, what had been a small corner of American folk became a worldwide phenomenon. And it wasn't long before her angelic, almost ethereal vocals carried her far beyond genre boundaries. By the 1990s and 2000s, Krauss was everywhere. She worked with legends like James Taylor, Brad Paisley, and Dolly Parton, while her collaboration with Robert Plant on Raising Sand won 5 Grammy Awards in one night. That record wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural moment, blending rock and roots into something unforgettable. And yet, even at the height of her fame, those closest to her noticed something. Alison wasn't driven by ego, money, or fame. She loved the music itself. She lived for the emotion of a lyric, the delicate sound of a fiddle line, and the purity of harmonies that cut straight to the soul. To the public, she seemed unstoppable. She had the awards, the acclaim, the sold-out tours, and the admiration of her peers. Behind the curtain, though, the pressure of sustaining perfection was mounting. Her voice, that flawless instrument the world adored, was beginning to change. Quietly, Alison began to worry that her greatest gift, the very thing that defined her, might be slipping away. And with it, everything she had built. Her fans didn't know it yet, but Alison Krauss was on a path that would lead to one of the most heartbreaking decisions of her career: stepping away from the spotlight. Again. From the outside, Alison Krauss appeared untouchable, the golden voice, the calm presence, the artist who never faltered on stage. But those who followed her career closely began to notice small, almost imperceptible changes. Performances became less frequent, interviews fewer, and new projects trickled out instead of flowing. To fans, it was puzzling. To Alison, it was devastating. The truth was that Krauss was quietly battling a vocal condition known as dysphonia, a disorder that affects the muscles used in speaking and singing. For someone like Alison, whose entire career and identity revolved around her voice, this was more than just a setback. It was an existential crisis. Dysphonia causes the voice to crack, weaken, or lose clarity. And for Alison, who built her legacy on a voice that seemed almost otherworldly, the possibility of losing that clarity was unbearable. She didn't speak much about it at first. Alison has always been intensely private, preferring to let her music tell her story. But behind closed doors, she was working tirelessly with vocal coaches and doctors trying to regain control. Long rehearsals turned into frustrating battles, where what once flowed effortlessly now felt strained and unpredictable. Imagine being celebrated as one of the most perfect voices in American music, only to wake up one day and realize that the very thing people praised you for might betray you. Friends and colleagues began to notice her anxiety. Bandmates in Union Station recalled moments where Alison seemed unusually quiet or withdrawn before shows. She worried not just about disappointing her fans, but about tarnishing her own legacy. She had spent decades building a reputation for vocal purity, every note in tune, every word crystal clear. If she couldn't deliver that anymore, she wondered if it was better to walk away than risk being remembered as a diminished version of herself. The struggle wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Alison once admitted that music had always been her way of coping with life. Without it, she felt adrift. And yet every time she tried to push through, her body reminded her that something was wrong. Her voice was telling her to stop. The cruel irony was that just as her collaborations and influence were expanding with the Plant partnership, new accolades and opportunities to record with icons, her instrument was betraying her. Fans cheered her on, unaware of the personal battle unfolding behind the stage curtain. They saw the smiles, the graceful bows, the standing ovations. They didn't see the tears, the frustration, or the moments Alison wondered if she would ever sing the same way again. It was during this period that she began to seriously consider stepping back. For someone like Alison, quitting wasn't about walking away from fame. It was about protecting the music itself. She didn't want to give audiences a version of herself that wasn't whole. She wanted to leave them with the beauty they remembered, not a shadow of it. And so, in what many fans saw as a shocking disappearance, Alison Krauss quietly retreated from the spotlight. What the world didn't know was that it wasn't just a career decision. It was survival, both physically and emotionally. When Alison Krauss began retreating from the spotlight, the music world was left puzzled. For decades, she had been one of the most consistent forces in bluegrass and country music, not just because of her own albums, but because of the countless collaborations she had been part of. Her voice was everywhere, on soundtracks, duets, and award shows. Suddenly, the silence was deafening. Fans speculated endlessly. Some thought she was taking time off to focus on family. Others believed she might have grown tired of the pressures of fame. In the music press, whispers of retirement began to circulate, though nothing was ever confirmed. And that was the hardest part. Alison said very little publicly, which only made the mystery deeper. Her bandmates in Union Station respected her privacy, but hinted at the difficulty of continuing without her full presence. "Alison isn't someone who does things halfway," one close collaborator once said. If she couldn't give her all, she wasn't going to fake it. That statement alone fueled even more speculation. Was she protecting her voice? Was she burned out? Or was something more serious happening behind the scenes? Industry insiders, meanwhile, were deeply concerned. Krauss wasn't just another singer. She was a cultural ambassador for a genre that had long struggled to remain relevant in mainstream music. Her absence created a void. Awards shows that once counted on her appearances lost a touch of their magic. Country and bluegrass festivals that hoped to book her noticed the impact when she wasn't on the lineup. Even record executives admitted privately that without Krauss, the genre felt quieter, less visible. When she finally began to open up about her condition, the truth hit hard. In interviews years later, Alison admitted that her vocal problems were far worse than anyone realized. She described the fear of stepping on stage not knowing whether her voice would cooperate. She explained that singing, something that had once brought her joy, had become a source of anxiety. For someone as precise and careful as Alison, this was crushing. The industry, however, responded with understanding. Fellow musicians rallied around her, praising her courage to speak about the condition. Robert Plant, who had worked so closely with her, publicly expressed his admiration, calling her a once-in-a-lifetime talent whose voice had changed his own career. Other artists echoed similar sentiments, that Alison had already given the world more than enough and that she had nothing to prove. But for Alison herself, the decision to step back was still bittersweet. She missed the stage, the connection with her audience, the feeling of creating something live that could never be replicated. And yet she knew deep down that pushing herself could cause irreparable harm. Her silence wasn't a choice made lightly. It was the only way to preserve what little strength her voice still had. And here's where the heartbreak truly lies. Alison Krauss never wanted to quit. She wasn't tired of the music, and she certainly wasn't tired of her fans. She was forced into it by a condition that didn't care how many Grammys she had won or how much the world adored her. It was, in many ways, the cruelest twist of fate for one of the greatest singers of her generation. Still, even in her absence, her legacy grew. The mystery surrounding her retreat only deepened the respect people had for her. Fans didn't just miss her, they cherished her even more. And when Alison finally revealed the real reason she quit, it wasn't just an explanation. It was a reminder that even legends are human, vulnerable, and fragile beneath the surface. Though Alison Krauss stepped back from the relentless pace of recording and touring, her story didn't simply end in silence. Over time, she cautiously re-emerged, reminding the world that while her struggles were real, her artistry was far from gone. Each appearance carried more weight, not just because of her voice, but because of the quiet resilience behind it. When Krauss collaborated again with Robert Plant on their second album, Raise the Roof, fans held their breath. Would she sound the same? Would her condition overshadow the music? The answer was a resounding no. Her voice, though more fragile in places, carried an added depth, a richness born from struggle and survival. Critics noted that Alison's delivery seemed even more emotional, as if her trials had stripped away the last layer of distance between her and her audience. Every note felt lived in, every lyric carried experience. For Alison, this cautious return was never about reclaiming the spotlight. It was about reconnecting with the music she loved. She had come to terms with the fact that her voice might never be exactly what it once was, and that was okay. What mattered was authenticity, and authenticity had always been at the heart of her career. Fans, meanwhile, welcomed her back with open arms. They weren't looking for perfection anymore. They were grateful simply to hear her sing again. In many ways, her vulnerability only deepened their admiration. Here was a woman who had achieved everything: Grammys, global recognition, artistic respect, and yet had been humbled by a condition beyond her control. Instead of hiding, she had the courage to explain why she disappeared, and in doing so, she gave comfort to countless others facing silent battles of their own. Her decision to step back also reshaped her legacy. Unlike many artists who push until their voices crack or their careers end in decline, Alison made a conscious choice to preserve her gift and her dignity. It was a sacrifice. She could have kept pushing for fame and money, but instead she chose honesty. And that honesty may be the very thing that keeps her remembered not just as a legend of bluegrass and country, but as a rare artist who put truth above everything else. Today, Alison Krauss remains a towering figure in American music. She may no longer dominate charts or headline endless tours, but her influence lingers everywhere. Younger musicians cite her as an inspiration, pointing to her ability to merge technical perfection with raw emotional power. Her records, especially those with Union Station and Robert Plant, continue to stand as some of the most important works of modern Americana. Most importantly, Alison has shown that walking away doesn't mean defeat. It means knowing when to protect yourself, when to step back for the sake of survival. Her silence was not weakness, it was strength. And when she finally revealed the real reason she quit, the world didn't respond with disappointment. They responded with love, compassion, and an even deeper respect. The truth is, Alison Krauss never truly quit. She simply redefined what it meant to be an artist. She reminded us that music is not just about notes, records, or awards. It's about humanity. And in sharing her humanity, she gave the world a gift even greater than her voice.